Hello, I'm Tinisha Spain from Illinois Public Media. We're going to take some time today to discuss the importance of estate planning to support the people and organizations you care so deeply about as part of Estate Planning Awareness Week. Before we get started, we'd like to recognize our partnering units, Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, Krannert Art Museum, Japan House, and the College of Media. Now, I'd like to introduce you to University of Illinois multi-unit donors Tim Temple and Jerry Carden. Tim and Jerry are donors who want to ensure their legacy at WILL, and they were kind enough to share their experience. Take a look.
I'm originally from southeast Iowa, grew up on a small farm there, ended up moving over here after I got my bachelor's degree, and that's how I discovered Champaign-Urbana.
And I grew up in another Iowa town, and what brought me to Champaign-Urbana was the school to go to interior design here at the University of Illinois.
I often say that I have too many interests for one lifetime or one retirement. I play piano, I play trombone, we love to garden.
Days like this will be found out in the garden, at least something doing.
I've been in this house for coming up on 32 years, so lots of additions and changes to the garden.
Enjoy books and exposure to different cultures and ideas.
And I think that's part of the attraction for WILL.
Many times our exposure to the three stations, AM, FM, and the TV station, one or many of those would be on at the same time. I think we both came from families that felt like our obligation was to pay back and share with the community in many different ways. And maybe it's not a huge amount, but yet it's also kind of a commitment that we put forward for our community.
We've followed along over time the fact that there's less and less public funding, and it's just that if we want to have that resource available, we need to support it.
And to continue that emphasis on search for diversity and exploration and education, and that's why we have put it into our estate plan.
All right, now I'm joined by Justin Seno and Judy Schneider, Directors of Gift Planning at the University of Illinois Foundation's Gift Planning and Trust Services Office. I had to read my notes on that one because that's a mouthful. So let's talk about that video a little bit, because I know this is something that you guys love to see, right? Folks making those arrangements.
What a great story. I mean, that story is what makes Justin and I love what we do. We get to meet people like Tim and Jerry every day and help them find out what they're passionate about and to hear how important. And they donate to a variety of units beyond WILL too. And so that's wonderful for us to have that opportunity.
That's a great story. Okay, sure. Before we get into our talk tonight, we've got some housekeeping items that Justin, you'd like to share.
Of course. Thanks, Tanisha, for having us. And we know you know a few things about gardening, and so what we'd like to liken our topic and discussion today is planting some educational seeds. And we can't provide advice, even though I'm a certified financial planner, and between Judy and I, we've got about 30 years of fundraising experience. We say to our donors and folks that we're working with to make sure they work with their proper estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, folks who are experts and can provide that advice. So today we're just going to provide some, plant some estate planning seeds today, and should be a fun time.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so let's just jump right in. First, how important is it to have an estate plan in place? Let's start very, very generally. How important is it?
It's very important to have an estate plan in place, and we do, all of us, have an estate plan in place. It may not be the one we want to have in place, but there are state statutes that dictate how our belongings will be distributed if we don't have a plan in place. So a number of reasons. One, you've worked hard all your life to accumulate the assets that you have. You want to be in the driver's seat to determine where those assets are going to go. You want to help provide for the financial well-being of your family. Those are two very important ones I can think of right off the top. In addition, I don't think too many people want to get involved in the probate process. It can be lengthy and costly, so that's another reason to have a plan in place. And probably last, eliminating and minimizing estate taxes. And granted, the estate tax threshold is very high right now. A couple can have $24 million in assets before they're going to be affected by that. But for state taxes, it's $4 million. So some people may be impacted by that. So good reasons to have an estate plan in place.
Okay, and Justin, what sort of things do you need document-wise to have in place and ready to go when you begin estate planning?
For sure, good question. So we typically look at 3 general documents that are needed, and one is either the will and living trust, and that's going to dictate how your assets are dispersed, who they're dispersed to, and then we look at powers of attorney, power of attorney for financial affairs as well as power of attorney for medical affairs, and then we look at the third document being some sort of healthcare directives. So with a will or living trust, a will actually does still go through probate. However, you get to decide where those assets go, and you get to make that decision for yourself versus the probate courts and that process. Whereas a living trust is much more private. It is a little more costly up front to develop. However, it allows that to be a private process, not subject to the probate courts, and can be private in how everything is distributed. So some people like one over the other. It's all based on preference, all of this is. And then moving to the powers of attorney, when you think about the financial power of attorney, it's when we're thinking also not only about afterlife, we're thinking about during life. So if there's ever a time that you have the inability to make a decision for yourself and go to the bank and withdraw money or write a check, I don't know if you still write checks, I do here and there, but yeah. I think my barber needs checks every now and then, but typically, you know, maybe even using, you know, app to pay bills and whatnot,
Yes.
you can empower somebody to make those decisions and what type of decisions you want them to make financially for you if you're unable to. Same thing with your medical care. Having a power of attorney for your medical care is also important. They can make decisions on where your end of life may be or where you don't want it to be, and they can help you direct those decisions. Furthermore, there's something as a do not resuscitate, not fun thing to talk about,
Sure.
but still something that you should talk to your primary care physician, to any other doctors you're working with, and what do you want those decisions to look like if those decisions need to be made. And so we really think about those 3 pieces as completing the puzzle for a full comprehensive estate plan. And of course, we want people to work with the proper personnel to put those in order.
Excellent, okay.
To even begin to start to think about those things, you know, maybe you're not going to rush to your attorney right away to get all of these things done, but the number one reason people don't work on their estate plan is procrastination. So if they start thinking about these things now, eventually they'll have all of those pieces in place. The number 2 reason they don't is because they don't think they have enough assets to. But everybody, you know, has something that they want to make sure that it's designated to somebody properly, whether it's their home, their car, their collectibles, whatever.
And what sort of national trends are we seeing right now? I know, you know, coming out of or still in the middle of COVID, things have been crazy the last couple of years. So what are we seeing nationally?
Well, COVID is a big one. COVID's in the last few years, COVID encouraged people to start thinking about this. They realized that they weren't going to live forever. Some studies have shown that 66% of a particular group that had a serious case of COVID got wills in place. They got those done. They realized the importance of that. And just a little anecdotal thing, Google searches for online wills tripled from beginning in 2020 from the 3 previous years. So it's certainly on people's mind. A third trend, I think, it's just, you know, that we couldn't meet with people in person. Justin and I, you know, we used virtual meetings, whether it was Zoom or Skype. Well, attorneys did the same thing. And they were used to having people in their offices, and now they were using Zoom and Skype to meet with folks. So it has changed things in that you might have gone to a local attorney that was well recommended to do this, but this opened up the world to go to other attorneys in other places. And I think that will continue. I think people will continue doing virtual meetings like that.
Interesting. What other national things are we noticing?
Yeah, what's interesting, Judy touched on a little bit, is we as Americans are procrastinators.
Big time.
We just don't get things done. We know we need to get it done,
It's
and we
part of
wait
our
till the last
culture,
minute.
right?
Yeah, and it's funky. I don't know. I guess we do eventually get things done, but when you look at the estate planning side, sometimes it might not be enough time to get it done, and you may not be able to make those decisions. And so we see nationally that less than half of Americans have a will in place, and there's a Gallup poll that shows that. So even though there was an uptick in looking for, estate planning instruments or those opportunities, people are still dragging their feet on making those decisions. However, when you dig into the data a little bit, it gets better as people age. I think people think more about their mortality as they age. However, my demographic of elder millennials, we're even worse at having wills. And some of us think like it's because I don't have many assets, so it's like, oh, I don't need to transfer much to anybody. However, I have a dependent, and it's important that that dependent is taken care of. I have a young child, and so my spouse and I wish I'd said as soon as he was born, went to get that done, but it took us going on a trip to say, okay, it's time to get our affairs in order. Something happens to us on this trip, we want to make sure that the person we want to take care of that dependent is the one taking care of it, so taking care of him. So it's really looking at a different variety of factors, and regardless is having a plan in place so that if something does happen, that can carry through. When you look at older folks, 65 plus, the number gets a little better. It's about 74% of those folks have wills in place. However, there's another trend shifting of not using just a will as the estate planning instrument, but looking at beneficiary designations, other will substitutes, such as the living trust I talked about. You still might need a will in those cases. However, there's just a lot of different variances in ways that you can get to the end result. And so it's important people understand those opportunities.
I can sort of relate to that. When my parents went on a cruise several years ago, I was in my middle 20s, and I've got two younger brothers, and magically, like a week before they were going to take off, they suddenly realized, what if something happens to us? And it was a very uncomfortable conversation, but it was something we did. And we had our estate folks come over, we met with my parents' attorney, and got some things on paper before they left. So when you talk about that trip sort of prompting you, oh no, what do I have in place? I had a personal story about that one. So when do people decide that it's time? When do we see people taking charge of that and getting started?
You gave us a great example, and those are the kinds of things, life events, maybe it's the birth of a child, maybe it's the death of a parent, or maybe it's, it doesn't even have to be in your family. It could be a friend who has experienced that. Those are the kinds of things that get you motivated to start thinking about this. But one estate planning attorney shared with me, he does 3 estate plans in a person's life. And the first one is what Justin talked about, the young fellow with just starting out with children, maybe doesn't have a whole lot of assets and is coming in there because they want to take care of that child and provide for them. The next group he sees are those in their 50s or 60s. They've started accumulating assets. They're now thinking about minimizing taxes. They're also thinking about passing this on to their kids, and they want to make sure that they have a foolproof plan so that their kids who might be affected by creditors or divorces, that they're planned for as well. And then there's the third set of folks, and those are their folks in their 70s or 80s. This is probably their final plan. They're wanting to simplify things. One of the things that they may be experiencing is health issues. They want to make sure that they provide for that, and Justin referred to some of those things that they put in place so that they have someone who can make those kinds of decisions for them. And also transitioning their assets to their family. So 3 times, but I think life events, wouldn't you say, Justin, are really the things that kind of get people in the door?
Life events definitely have an impact. When you talk to estate planning attorneys and folks, they typically say to at least refresh it, look at it every 3 to 5 years. A lot can happen in 3 to 5 years. I mean, we've seen what happens in 2.5, 3 years, right? So just getting back and refreshing it, looking at the will, the trust, the beneficiary designations. We've worked with some donors where they're looking at their beneficiary designations on a retirement plan that was going to go to their parents, and their parents are no longer living. Well, making sure those are up to date and going to the proper people is really important. And, always taking an inventory of what you have and making sure that that's accounted for. Sometimes you may have a car and you wanted to give it to your kid, and all of a sudden that car's not there anymore. And so are you giving them a different car or whatnot? And there's just a lot of nuances that when it comes to estate planning that we want people to be consistently looking at it, on a recurring basis and making sure that the intentions still align. People change their minds, right? I
Sure.
mean, life changes, and the nice part about some of these estate plans is they're revocable. They can be changed, and so it's not always set in stone. I mean, it's set in stone after your lifetime,
Yeah.
but during your lifetime, you still maintain control of your assets, control of that plan, and so 3 to 5 years, typically 5, is where we see that kind of sweet spot.
And just making sure all the pieces still fit.
For sure.
And if they don't, make those necessary changes.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the things that you need to take with you when you go see your estate planning attorney?
Yeah, so we have a nice resource on our website. It's uif.giftplans.org, and there you can find a sheet that helps people with their charitable and financial inventory. And estate planning attorneys will often have a checklist similar to this as well, but it can really allow people to outline their goals, what they have, who the people they care about are, and bring that with them to their attorney, to their financial planner, and have all that pre-work done. It'll save some time through the process with working with your attorneys, and they'll appreciate it as well because you have that inventory of everything. I mean, over time, we can accumulate quite a bit of stuff, so and we might want that to go certain places.
And that's a
Exactly,
great first
exactly.
step for a procrastinator. I mean, that's a little step that they can take. Get hold of this record, and attorneys provide these records as well. But they spend so much of their time educating you when you come in the door about what your options are, that if you can get that done in advance, because they're going to send you home anyway to do it. I don't think they'll spend time in the office doing that while the clock's going. But anyway, that's an important thing to get done. And so my advice is get to that right now.
And we talked a little bit about this, but let's talk a little bit more about the importance of having this plan in place, because grief changes people. When your family's already grieving a loss and you're having to sort through all of this, we're talking a lot of emotions here. We're talking complicated relationships. So why is it important to have this all planned out before, or in the event that you're unable to make those decisions? Your family situation may change. The people that you were depending on may no longer be there. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so with estate plans, there needs to be executors, there needs to be trustees. We talked about power of attorney for healthcare, financial. And so thinking about the people you care about, who you want to help make those decisions for you if you're not able to. And sometimes that falls on loved ones, but take the guesswork out of it. Have a conversation with those people about, I want you to help me with this if I'm not able to make these decisions. When it's all said and done, I want you to be able to transfer my assets to the people as I've outlined in these documents, and making sure they feel okay with it. And if your loved one doesn't feel okay with it, you can go to third parties, you can go to corporate trustees, you can go to other organizations who can make those decisions for you as well. And sometimes it's a little nicer. You take your family out of that, who have some biases or maybe some special feelings about, well, this should actually go somewhere else. And so sometimes taking the family out of those decisions can be helpful. Often we see people, if they have siblings though, they'll maybe a brother or sister will be the primary, and then they'll have a successor, and then and that could be the other sibling, and then it could be a corporate, but oftentimes we also see them just choose the corporate trustee from the get-go, and so that can sometimes save some grief and stress from the loved ones who, like you said, are dealing with this process of losing a loved one, and then all of a sudden they're having to aggregate an estate and figure out where things go and all of that, and it can be a lot for somebody. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I haven't settled any estates before. I've seen some of the process. It's a lot. There's a lot that happens.
pieces.
I mean, I had a family member that had to help my Nana through the process and everything, and it was a lot for that person to figure out. So having that discussion, making sure that they're prepared and that you feel good about who's going to help you with that and what that plan is what it's all about and why it's important.
Okay. What's the simplest way you can make an impact on an organization that you love or that you care about?
Yeah. So I'm going to take that again, I guess. I'm going to just keep talking, Judy. So there's a couple different veins we could go into, and we'll stay in the estate planning vein. I mean, we're about outright giving as well in the Office of Gift Planning and Trust Services. However, people can make an immediate impact by simply putting us or charities in their estate plans. And one quick and easy way of doing it is through beneficiary designations. I kind of alluded to this earlier. There's a lot of money in retirement plans nowadays, and those tend to be easy assets to go update your beneficiary designations. You may be able to go home and check out your retirement plan today, fill out your beneficiary designation at A, make sure it's up to date, B, change some things around if you want to, and as far as making an impact to charity, you could include a place like the University of Illinois Foundation. Our tax ID number could be provided to you. I think it's on the screen. And then if you want something specific to happen with that gift, we could outline exactly where you want it to support, whether it's Illinois Public Media, the Japan House, the College of Veterinary Medicine, just to pick on a few. Those could be some good areas to support. But these beneficiary designations, often you don't need to go see an attorney to update them, and you can go online and make those updates, and it's a really quick, simple, easy way to make an impact. And we won't realize that gift for a long time, but we could celebrate what the impact could be today.
Sure, and you've got some other tools.
I do, but before I'll comment too on the IRA beneficiary designation, one of the best reasons to give that to charity is because of the tax implications if you give it to family. So if you're trying to decide which asset you want to direct to charity, an IRA is the perfect one to do that with. There's also insurance, that you can have beneficiary designations. And I think you talked about bank and brokerage accounts, things like that. But while that may be the simplest way, the most common way that people make deferred gifts is through bequests. 90% of all deferred gifts are through a simple bequest through one's will or living trust. And we have the language up there for that as well. And we're able to provide this for you for your specific situation. When people get around to deciding that they want to benefit WILL, Illinois Public Media, or Krannert Art Museum, or Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, or but I missed them all, Japan House, College of Media, whatever, we can provide you the actual language that you can use for that. But the nice thing about bequests is, you have your money to use during your lifetime. This is a gift that is made after your lifetime when you no longer have need of the assets. You can make a gift of a certain dollar amount. You can make a gift of a percentage. Or you can make gifts to all of your family and then use the remainder to give to charity. So there's lots of ways that you can do that.
Okay, and what about the person who wants to give or perhaps is worried that they will not have enough to give but still has that heart of philanthropy? How do you work through that? That's
a common situation for people. We all worry about, are we going to have enough to make it through our lives, with long-term health care and different things. But there's a couple really neat gift options that we find that people use and find really attractive. And the one I'll talk about is the charitable gift annuity. We call it the gift that gives twice. First, it gives to the donor in steady payments throughout their lifetime, and then the remainder benefits whatever they designated it to do. And it's a simple contract between the donor and the University of Illinois Foundation, where we promise to make payments, annual payments, for the lifetime of that person. It can be for joint lives or successive lives for a couple of people. The payout rate that is used is based on one's age, and the longer we defer the gift annuity, the higher the rate. And I think we have an example of one I can go through here. An individual age 67 who makes a gift of $100,000. Their charitable deduction on a gift of that amount, it can either be cash or appreciated securities. The charitable deduction for that is $42,705. So you can see that the rate for someone age 67 is 5%, and our rates actually went up July 1st. They all went up about 0.4 to 0.6%. So they're attractive, and a lot of people who might have money sitting in a CD that's maybe making 2% find this a good option to take that money out to do a gift annuity. Gives them the security of having these payments, just like their pension is coming in, their Social Security, cross our fingers, is coming in, and they have this gift annuity coming in. In fact, we find that some people do one every other year to plan for retirement, so they have these steady stream of payments coming in. And one more I'll touch on is the deferred charitable gift annuity. We have some rules around gift annuities. You have to be 60 years old with a minimum gift of $10,000. But if you're 50 and this looks attractive and you kind of want to start planning for when you turn 65, you can do a deferred gift annuity with us. And again, that charitable deduction is made in the year that you make the gift. if you itemize, and if you don't itemize, you can carry that over for the next 5 years. But both of those are great options for that person that wants that security of having those payments come in yearly for the rest of their life.
Gotcha, gotcha. And Justin, you've got another tool that you were going to discuss kind of on the same vein there.
Yeah. If I could first address something with the
Sure,
CDs
sure.
and the CGAs, one thing to keep in mind with the charitable gift annuity is it is an irrevocable gift.
Yeah.
So once someone makes that,
Can't get your
you
money
can't
back.
get your money back. We're going to pay. We're
You're in it.
guaranteed to pay you that income
Yes.
for your life. However, with the CD, you have access to that money in and out. So
Yeah.
just something
Yeah,
to
and we
kind of
don't like to compare the
Yeah.
two, only that the CDs, you know, when you think about that, and they're making such little money, this is a good way to provide yourself steady payments.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and I always thought the CGA, when I started learning about the charitable gift annuities about a decade ago, I thought, like, this is a really savvy way for people who are charitably inclined to make a gift, get a deduction, receive their lifetime payments for themselves or loved ones, depending on how they structure it, and then the gift goes to charity after the term of the contract, which is the life of the annuitant, and really neat way. Something a little more sophisticated, which you're alluding to, is the charitable remainder trusts. And we talk more about the charitable remainder unit trust. There is a unit trust or an annuity trust. However, today, for time's sake, we'll just talk about the charitable remainder unit trust. It is a more complicated giving vehicle than the simple CGA contract. However, it is a little similar in how it pays a beneficiary for their life or a term of years, up to 20 years. And if we kind of use the same example of someone being age 67, and let's say they make a $100,000 gift, similar as the example Judy shared for the CGA, they would qualify for a charitable deduction. We will pay the person 5% of the assets valued annually. So in year one, they'll get $5,000 because that was the gift value, $100,000. But let's say after year one, it increases to $110,000. Well, we're going to pay 5% of the $110,000, so they'll get $5,500 that year. Well, the markets aren't doing too hot right now, unfortunately. So after this year, presumably some of those trusts may be a little lower in value. So maybe it's gone down to $90,000. We're going to pay 5% of that, so they'll get $4,500 that year, and that'll go on for the life of the or for the term of the trust agreement, which could be the life or a term of years. And so just another way of finding an opportunity to help yourself or loved ones and also charity at the same time.
Now, how do I choose something that's near to me, something that I love? How do I go about that? How do you navigate that?
That's the fun part for us. That's what makes our job fun for Justin and I, because we will work with you where you're at. We'll meet with you, figure out what it is you're passionate about. You know, hear your story. I love the stories that people share with us. You know, the story we heard earlier when we opened the show. I mean, you know, you learned what was important to them, how important it was that they passed those values on in that legacy. So we'll kind of flesh all of that out, and when we learn, in someplace like the University of Illinois, there are so many areas where you can find something you're passionate about, you know, whether it's cancer, the arts, education, and once we figure out where that is, we'll work with our colleagues. They know what the needs are right now. They know what the needs are going to be in the future, and we'll try to dovetail that so that it fits something that is important to you and that you'll feel good about.
I'm uber passionate about the future of education and education in general, and often when we have discussions with people, ask them questions, listen to what their intentions are. We're constantly looking at the alignment of intentions and university priorities, and how does that intersect, and does that meet with the goals of the donor? And if those two align, it's a perfect match. And like Judy said, the University of Illinois is a vast place, a lot of opportunities to support all sorts of different things, from healthcare to cancer to engineering to agriculture to the arts. I mean, I think there's animals.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
we've all gotten more animals now after COVID. We've got our furry friends, which we need to think about in estate planning as well.
Yes.
But there's a lot of different aspects that you can think about, and we love to help people narrow it down, to listen to their story and figure out how to align all those things.
And there's lots of ways they can do it. I mean, they can, it doesn't matter the size of the gift. It can be just a simple outright gift to an existing fund. Perhaps they want to establish an endowment, in memory of somebody, or to honor somebody, or maybe in their own name because of the career they've had. So there's lots of ways that you can create that legacy at the university.
What are some mistakes that people make as they're beginning their planning journey?
Well, I have a little list of mistakes, and I'm sure there's many more that I don't have here. But of course, the biggest mistake is that they don't complete an estate plan. I mean, that's tops on the list. And you alluded to this, Justin, but failing to name a beneficiary on your IRA, your bank accounts. I mean, some of those things. I'm to blame right now. I just opened a bank account and I've not put my beneficiaries on there. So those kinds of things are important to get that done, and that stuff will all come up when you're filling out that personal and charitable record. You can kind of start taking inventory of those things and making sure you get that done. Another thing is planning your estate without all the pieces. All of the, I think I mentioned the other day that, I kind of figured out what all of my assets were, but I'd forgotten my College Illinois plan. So making sure that you have a list of all of those things, and then sharing with your attorney a lot of family information that you might not think is important, divorces and adopted children or children out of wedlock. All of those kind of things are important for that attorney to get a full picture of how your estate will play out in the end. This is a big one, assuming your heirs are going to agree on everything. Ooh. I've seen too many times when people say, well, my kids are going to know what to do.
They'll take care of it.
And while the parents are alive, sometimes that works. But I always say it's hard to see. I have 4 siblings, and all of us were raised with the same parents, but we all have very different ideas of how we want to do things. So if they can take that mystery out, or some of those decisions out of that for the children later on, by putting that in their estate plan, that's an important thing to do. And the final thing probably is failing to plan for disability, because we all think we're going to be just like this the rest of our lives. And, it's likely that, one of us will be affected by Alzheimer's, dementia of some type, and to make sure that you plan for those kind of conditions through your health plan. And again, Justin talked about some of those important documents to get in place so that others can make some of those decisions for you if you're not able to.
And it's not just about the stuff, right? No one's just sitting around on a pile of cash or gold bullion. We mentioned pets. We mentioned, it's not, you don't have to be wealthy or have a lot of things to have an estate plan in place.
You really don't.
True. Yeah. I mean, you could have no money, but if you have dependents that you care about and you want to make sure they're taken care of by somebody else, you can put those plans in place, and they should be in place. And we talked a little bit about pets, and I often see working with people who are passionate about their furry friends. Those are like their family, right? I mean, I know my dog's like my family, and in our plan, we know who's going to take care of that dog.
Or providing food and health care for your dog, for the rest of their life.
Going into like missing pieces too, and we talked about this and just refreshing the plan and everything is just, have you acquired something since the last time you had your plan, like another piece of real estate or a brokerage account? Judy talked about a bank account, and just making sure that those things are up to date. And while I'd like to think Americans are mostly perfect, I mean, we're not, so we got to make sure that double check things and stay on top of it, and hopefully at the end of the day we feel good about our plan, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
And then it's in place and ready to do its job.
For sure.
So how many people would you say have their wealth tied up in retirement plans, and is that a good strategy?
So it depends, but I mean, there's about $30 trillion in retirement plans nowadays. I mean, and that number continues to swell. And over the last I guess I should say last decade, we've talked about this transformation of wealth, the baby boomers retiring, their parents passing away, and all this money moving. And it's kind of taken a lot longer than we thought for that transformation of wealth, but there's still a lot of money tied up in retirement plans. And I think that's a good thing, and that people are planning for retirement. We see in some cases that people aren't going to spend all their money, whether they're in retirement accounts or otherwise. And so planning on who do you want to take care of with those plans. Judy talked about that IRAs can be good to give to charity. IRAs, retirement plans, can be good to give to loved ones as well. And even though many people won't be subject to the estate tax at the federal level or even the state level, there's still income tax. Those are assets that are titled as income in respect of a decedent. So if you give those assets to living heirs, they will pay income tax on it. And that may be okay, and that could still be a good wealth transfer strategy. However, those could be good to also give to charity, because as a qualified 501c3 not-for-profit corporation, we don't pay income tax. So 100% of that money will come to us. We won't pay the income tax, and we'll put it towards use to whatever it is the donor wanted to support.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything else?
I concur with that. I concur with
I
that.
could go on and on about the Secure Act and different
So
things that happens with legislation over the years. It's something we definitely keep a pulse on to make sure as things change, administrations, different folks in Congress have new ideas. We'll keep an eye on it and hope to keep folks updated and working collaboratively with our team to make sure we're putting good plans together for people.
Yeah, we talk about this being kind of serious stuff, and that people procrastinate. For one thing, they think they can't change their minds on some of these plans, but it's heavy stuff. So Justin and I hope that we bring the fun part to it when we're working with people to help them plan their philanthropic goals, because I think that's fun. What's better than knowing that you've left a legacy, or that your values are going to continue in something that you feel is important. And so that's the fun part. Hopefully that's the fun part.
That's sort of what I picked up from the video in the beginning, was the importance that they placed on their legacy and having things in place so that their legacy could live on. And I imagine a lot of people who come in to see you, that's at the top of mind.
For sure.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't know that until we ask a bunch of questions. We don't know why they, so we have to hear their story to figure out what it is why this is so important to them. And so that is and I know Tim and Jerry talked about diversity in education and exploration. So those were important to them, and they felt that they could get those through Illinois Public Media and some of the other organizations here that they support.
Excellent. Well, I don't have any other questions. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add? Anything else that you feel is important for folks, or perhaps someone who's watching that they're this close from taking that first step to planning?
I would add one thing, and I'll let you add something too, Justin, if you want. But I'm thinking, and we mentioned it, but we drum it into folks. It's so important that we are the University of Illinois Foundation is the official fundraising and gift receiving agency for the university. And oftentimes people don't know that, and so when they go to their attorney without that information, they might have it University of Illinois, and they might just have Illinois, whatever. So that's important that they use that information when they establish these documents, and we have the language that we can provide for them. So it's for the benefit of whatever that unit is that they want to support. But that helps so much in the ease of administration. We're set up to distribute those funds most efficiently. So that's one thing I would add.
Something we would share as well would be, in my opinion, there's no time like the present. Get a plan in place. Take that first step. Start taking an inventory of what you have. Reach out to somebody to find a qualified attorney, financial planner, someone that you could trust, or begin the conversation to start trusting them, and look for those opportunities to get done with it. It's not, like Judy said, it's not the most glamorous topic, talking about end-of-life issues. However, putting the plan in place is vitally important, and if you keep procrastinating, you probably won't get to it. So just take that first step is what I would suggest.
Excellent. Those are excellent closing words. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Awesome. I want to give a big thank you to Judy and Justin for stopping by in the WILL TV studios to talk to us about gift giving and estate planning. Also, a thank you to our studio audience and our partnering units who are here today. And thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions for them, you can contact them at the number and the information on your screen. For Illinois Public Media, I'm Tinisha Spain.